Hello, everyone. Welcome to Career Chat with Marty and Dan. So there was supposed to be a different career coach who neither Dan nor I have met, who had a slot here originally, and I don't know what happened there. But so this was already designated to be the career discussion time period. And when it was found out that uh, that had been canceled, Dan and I stepped in to fill the void.
We swooped in like vultures. So
Just saw that opportunity and seized upon it, which is what you should do in your job search. Hey, who the hell are we? Who are these guys that are talking to you? I'm Marty. This is Dan. I am the head career coach of Job Hunters, and Dan is the head resume writer of Job Hunters, a career development, resume writing, interview, networking, all sorts of full service career services company. We hang out at JobHunters.Work, and we have a Twitch channel every week where we basically do this. We take questions about people's job searches, and to give you some sense of what we do and who we are, Dan and I have been working in career services for approximately 10 years each now. We started strictly in resume writing, and from there, I have worked in HR. I have done hiring and resume reading for multiple companies. I served as an HR consultant, and now I do this, and I work for an outplacement services firm where I essentially help answer people, get them on the right track, and train them in the skills that are needed to do jobs today. Dan, we want to talk a little bit about your resume writing expertise real quick.
So I have been resume writing for about 7 years now. I also work as a professional copywriter and UX designer. Those are sort of my backgrounds. I do a little bit of career consultation as well, but primarily I focus on the writing aspect. The way to present yourself, the way to market yourself in writing, and the way to kind of effectively present information that'll draw the reader to the right conclusions about you without you having to explicitly say stuff.
And this is my ninth Barcamp, I think, and this is probably the fifth one where I've given some kind of talk about jobs, about work. So this is our bread and butter. Since this is so impromptu, though, we're gonna need a little bit of help from y'all, essentially. Dan and I we swept in like vultures on that opportunity, but didn't necessarily have anything prepared to talk about. We do have a resume that we're going to critique live for y'all in a second. One of our audience members, Jason Rabin, has been gracious enough to offer himself up for sacrifice for us. But I'm really going to want to know, basically, this is going to be very hands-on. If you have a question that pertains to job search or career development or any of the above situations, feel free to put it into chat or use a little hand raise feature, and we will get to you.
We're not
real quick.
We're gonna try to avoid giving away company secrets and stuff like that, but mostly we're gonna try to keep it to stuff we wish more people knew before they started working with us. Just basically knowledge that should be common and fortunately isn't really out there.
And we'll also talk a little bit about I can help us guide through the weird time that we are currently in for job hunting. What you can expect to be asked in interviews over the next couple of months, things like that. So real quick though, you can answer it in chat, or you can give me a thumb. How many of you would say that you are actively looking for a new position right now? All right, everybody. Guess that makes sense. Why else would you be here? That's not true. Sometimes people come to us that are just somewhat interested. And I'm not gonna have time to read them all, but if anybody wants to drop what field they're in chat, that would also be helpful. And finally, let me know what is your number one concern right now? What are you most afraid of? What are you most worried about the job search right now? What's the big obstacle for you? And you can take a second to think about that. Um, while you do that, I'm going to shift our.
So it looks like people so far are primarily in technical fields, data analysis, software development, UX. Uh,
Pretty common for us.
but we should be using the Discord chat so it can be saved after the fact.
Oh,
Good
okay.
to know.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I've got that open in another window. So, okay, so you want to drop that in the Discord chat? Apologies. Yeah. So Jason is a couple of things. COVID job searching. Curious about LinkedIn, Sherry, or we'll get into that. Little experience in the field that you're trying to develop a career in. We can definitely talk about that. And Jason, who has volunteered his resume. All right, I'm gonna get through these, but before I do that, all right, I'm gonna share this version of Jason's resume. Everybody looking at that? All right. So Jason managed to Jason sent this to me, and to be honest, when I first opened up, my immediate response was, crap, this is pretty good.
I definitely have more notes on it.
Go for it, Dan.
Marty, do you want to zoom in on this a little bit?
Sure thing.
All right. So the big thing, and it's something that you have to keep in mind when you write a resume, is that the first person that looks at it is an HR person or an administrative assistant. At that point in the process, they typically have at most 3 minutes to make a decision about you. So they need to read this, understand who you are, what you do, and how well you do it in as little time as possible. You also have to keep in mind that when they are looking at your resume, they have probably looked at 20, 30 resumes before you. So they are sick of looking at resumes, most likely. So along that end, you need to make your resume, both in terms of formatting and the way you write, as easy to skim as possible. Now, Jason has done a lot of good work here in terms of keeping his information straightforward, to the point, and nice and concrete. A couple of exceptions to that I'll talk about. But the big problem he has is that this resume is hard to skim. I get tired almost immediately looking at it. And there's a couple of small, individually innocuous mistakes that sort of add up to that problem. A big one is that it rapidly changes up between different formatting types. You have full line and bold, then you have like one hanging line that switches from bold to unbolded. Then you have that line back to bold, back to full line unbolded, back to bolded full line, unbolded bullets. And it's sort of, it seems like a little thing, but those rapid change-ups make the resume harder to digest quickly. Something that will make Jason's life a lot easier here is that with his years of experience, he can go over 2 pages. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm actually, did we get Jason's pronouns? I just realized that I might be...
Jason, give us a heads up if we're doing okay.
Yeah, you're
okay. Cool.
You guys are getting he, him.
Okay.
Perfect. Sorry about that. So yeah,
and Dan, someone in chat actually asked thoughts about having a 1 versus 2 page resume. So can you go into that right now?
Yeah. So this is a relatively flexible rule, but the basic rule of thumb is that if you have less than 10 years of experience, the resume should be under 1 page. If you have 10 to 15 years of experience, 1.5 might be appropriate. You could possibly go to 2 pages. And if you have more than 15 years of experience, you are all in the clear to go to 15 pages. But
no, not 15 pages.
Sorry, not 15 pages. To 2 pages. Now that is not ironclad. If you have content that you feel like you can't possibly fit to a single page, that might mean that you have just done a lot of different things, and all of them are necessary to what you need to say. Um, if you have less than 10 years of experience and you go over one page, you need to really, really take a critical look at your resume and make sure that you have the content to justify that
The, the
there's nothing on there that you can cut.
the rule I tell people is that when it comes to length, your resume needs to be however long it has to be in order to be tight. And when I
Yeah.
say tight, I mean everything on there serves a purpose. There is no filler. Everything is going towards your goal of telling the story that you want to tell about yourself, which is something that we can also get into in a second,
Yeah.
how to pick that story for yourself. But uh, and that might mean you have to kill your darlings, right? You
Yeah.
have to be realistic about some things. So the one page rule is a squishy rule. It's
Hmm.
more like a guideline. Um, so there's no one size fits all. Plus, if you work in academia or if you're applying overseas to like the UK, they have different standards. So things get to be a little longer.
Yeah.
Federal positions are longer, etc.
Yeah.
So there's exceptions to this rule, but uh, for the most part, what Dan has said is accurate.
Yeah. So, in this case, based off of the level that you're at in your career, the amount of stuff that you've done, and how long you've been in the field, you uh, you have been making this way too hard on yourself with this tight one-page resume. You can relax this, go to 2 pages, which is going to allow you to use a much less busy format. Uh, Typically, you want to keep it to 3 or 4 different types of formatting. One thing for section headers, work experience, education, volunteerism. One thing for the name of the business, date ranges, and your position there, and then bullets. The less formatting changes you have, the easier the resume is to skim. Um, After that, uh, one thing I want to point out, and Jason didn't do this too much, but I want to point it out as sort of an example. Up top, you have caring and enthusiastic professional that enjoys providing the best services and solutions to achieve customer satisfaction. Um, Almost delete that.
Means absolutely nothing.
Yes.
It
So
means zero.
yes, especially since you have a lot better summaries down below, but there's a couple of problems. One, avoid fluffy adjectives. Don't call yourself hardworking or dynamic uh, or passionate. Those are just padding, and the reader is going to sort of disregard them immediately. Um, One problem is that uh, people who don't really have a lot going on in their resume tend to use language like that to pad it out. Um, so when you use it, no, even though you have a really good resume here, those adjectives are immediately associated with overcompensating. Uh, the
A good rule of thumb is to remember that a resume needs to be an objective document.
Mhm.
You want to stick to objective statements, things that are declaratively true, right? It is subjective whether Jason is caring or not. I don't know if Jason is a caring individual,
Yeah,
and you're not going to make me guess. But is it true that Jason has 10 years of experience in sales? Yes, that is true, or what
and,
have you. So you
and
want to make this an objective document and contain as much objective information as possible. Other places like your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, you can get a little bit more squishy and subjective there. But this is a boring, straightforward list of facts about you.
so there is in relation to that, there's something called impression management. That is basically, if the reader comes to the conclusion themselves, it's much more powerful than if you tell them. So by telling the reader that you're a caring professional, they're going to go, all right, sure, I guess. But what you really want to happen is for them to read through the facts that you are presenting and say, oh, Jason's a really caring professional, he's very enthusiastic.
And
um
I'll pause us here actually because this gets into kind of my neck of the woods, which is branding and telling the story that you want to tell about yourself. Uh, so, for example, I hate the phrase branding, but when I say brand, what I'm actually talking about is a person's reputation. What are you known for? What do you want people to know you for? One of the questions I ask people most is try to figure out, let's pretend that I'm the person who has just read this resume, or we've just met at a bar camp, or we've just met, or I've just given you an interview, and you want me to go to my boss, and you want me to say, hey, Jason, just spoke to Jason. Jason seems really blank. What words do you want me to use there? Right. And Jason already said, let's see, caring and enthusiastic. Cool. So the question becomes, how do you prove that to a a stranger, essentially? That's what job hunting is a lot of times, is proving that you are what you say you are to a total stranger who is also on the other side of the desk lying to you as well.
Mhm.
And so to if you want to present yourself as a problem solver, right? I am a person who comes up with creative solutions to problems. Don't say I'm a problem solver. Show me in these bullet points problems that you solved.
Mhm.
Simple. Show me example. Enthusiastic. How could we show that Jason is enthusiastic? To show that Jason is enthusiastic, I would recommend coming up with examples of things that he has done that he did not necessarily need to
Yeah.
do, but he took the initiative and he got excited to do it. So yeah, this is a very show don't tell situation,
Yeah.
and it kind of, so a couple of you have also mentioned um, that you don't have a ton of experience in the field of tech, or this kind of experience in the field that you are trying to develop a career in. Um, Obviously your situations are going to be like individually different. I will say most of the time when people tell me this, number one, you have more experience than you think you do. You're probably not counting certain things. But number two, if you're trying to get into a role that you do not have a whole lot of experience in, the question you have to ask yourself is, what else do I have? What else about me adds value to a workplace and makes it worth taking the risk, right? Because that is what getting a job is about. Basically, is you are trying to convince the person on the other side of the desk that however much money it costs to hire you, like they're going to get that value back. So you have to define what your value, it's called a value proposition.
Mhm.
What is your what value do you bring to the table? And be realistic for yourself. My value proposition is, maybe I don't bring a whole lot of UX experience. Here's the little bit of a UX experience I have. It's listed on my resume. But I also bring X, Y, and Z. I have this perspective from my background. This is probably something that you don't have at your company. This perspective that I have is unique to me. So this is something, right? There's so much that you can do when you think about yourself and what you bring to the table that you can use to essentially sell. Try to
Yeah.
mitigate that idea that you don't have a lot of experience. I will
This
also
is
say on this moment, Saxon just asked, because tech involves learning, understanding so many languages and skills, at what stage of understanding is it appropriate to list a skill you've learned? On your resume, list that skill the instant you're familiar with it.
Yes. If someone can put that in front of you and ask you to do something with it, if you are reasonably competent that you can at least get started on that, you might need to look up some stuff to get refreshed. But if you have any experience with Java, put Java on your resume.
If you are familiar with it, put it
Yeah.
on there.
If you have watched one Coursera video on how to use Java, just like put it on there. It's really anything that you are reasonably familiar with.
Dan, talk about keywords for a second, because that's why the reason for this on the resume is.
So there are things called applicant management systems. They're pretty widespread for any company that is hiring a high volume of applicants on a regular basis. For example, if they're going to regularly have job postings that are going to receive 50 or more applicants, they're going to be using one of these systems. And these systems do is pretty simple, which is basically when a resume is submitted, they scan it, rank it by keyword, and then sort those according to keywords. So the more keyword hits you get on your resume, the earlier someone is going to look at it. To get past that, the most basic thing is always make sure that your resume is scannable text. You don't want to turn in a flat image or anything that is going, or any formatting that is so complex that it's going to garble sort of the information. A good easy way to test this is to copy everything down and paste it into a Google Doc and make sure that the information isn't messed up. That tends to happen with columns and stuff like that. The next thing to do is to create a technical skills section. Keep it simple, nothing crazy in terms of formatting, just bullets with bullets listed out, and pack it with absolutely every concrete skill, tool, piece of equipment, development methodology, language program, anything that you can put into that section. Absolutely pack it with those. And after you do that, go to postings that you either literally or hypothetically want to apply for. Scan those for keywords that you don't already have. And make sure that you are getting everything on the page that you can possibly get, because if you get highly ranked in those systems, it's going to increase the yield you're getting almost immediately.
I want to jump back to Saxon's quick. In the skills section, do you qualify? Another question. In the skills section, do you qualify each with the amount of experience, expertise in any way? No, with the exception of spoken foreign languages. Yeah. Do not give any qualifications, because you are definitely going to undersell yourself. Mm-hmm. If they need to know how much you know about something, they will ask later and you can explain. Yeah. But in that skill section, leave it alone. But I want to get back to the question of at what stage of understanding is it appropriate to list a skill, because it harkens to something else that people talk about, or that I talk to people about, which is, when is it okay to call yourself the thing that you do? When am I a chef? When am I a writer? When is this, like, when does this actually count? And the rule of thumb, the instruction I tell people is, unless there is like a certification that you need to get and a law against it, like I can't just declare myself a doctor. I can't just say that I am a doctor and then be a doctor. I can't just say that I'm a cop and then be a cop. Unless there is just unless there is a formal process for it and a law against it, the answer is whenever.
Yeah.
If you programmed something, congratulations, you are a programmer. If you wrote something, way to go, you are a writer. Now, are you a good writer? Are you a writer who is qualified for anything? Probably not. I wrote a poem a month ago. It took me 3 hours. It was the only poem that I have written in my entire life. Am I a poet? Yes. Most poets would say no, but I am a poet with 3 hours of experience. This does not make me the poet laureate, but it is a fact that I have 3 hours of experience in poem writing. So
it's always better to err on the side of overselling yourself than underselling yourself,
because somebody else is overselling themselves and they're going to be the ones that get the job. Yeah. And plus, even if there is a formal process for anything, what do you call the person who graduated last in their class from medical school? You call them doctor. Mm-hmm. Just because somebody has a job title does not mean they are good at that job. So don't put that much pressure on yourself. You know, you can be the thing that you want to be just by saying it.
A pretty common thing I get with clients is everybody has the urge to be modest about themselves because you are a good, decent person, and that's what society has conditioned good, decent people to be. The problem is that does not help you in the job hunt. The people that get jobs consistently are people who like to brag about themselves, which is largely one of the reasons why jerks rule the world, is because they are the only people willing to oversell themselves. So you do need to kind of snuff out the voice in your head telling you to be polite.
I will also say that this is a big reason for the gender wage gap, is because Men in general will apply to a job. Men in general tend to oversell ourselves, and we tend to apply to jobs where maybe we fit 70, 80% of the criteria. Whereas women, and there have been studies to prove this, women will, in general, will only apply to a job if they feel confident that they fit 90 to 100% of the criteria. Let me tell you something, as somebody who has written many, many job descriptions, we write those job descriptions knowing full well we are not going to get a person who fits 100%.
Mhm.
Be I want you to, if you take nothing else away from this, when you are looking at a job description, know that that was written with the specific goal in mind of turning you off. Because if I can get you to click the back button, that's one less application I have to go through. So they were written to scare you away. They were written looking for a unicorn. If you think you meet 70-ish, 70, 80% of the criteria, and you can bring something else to the table to fill in that other 20%, apply, 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 do it.
Uh, so could I'm still looking at Jason's resume. Could I circle back to that real
Yeah, let's
fast?
get back to Jason.
Yeah. So, the next thing I want to talk about is around the world traveler,
Yeah, I
which
was wondering how you do this.
rules. That is so freaking cool. And does not go there. Um, Now that is the kind of texture that's going to help you stand out and is definitely going to get you into a nice conversation. Um, but at this point in the resume, where I am at reading it, it is not helpful information. Remember, I have 3 minutes. I need to know as much of your professional history as quickly as possible. Um, this does explain a little gap, uh, but the place for it would either be a different section further down in the resume. You could put this as an independent project if you want to make sure that that gap is covered on your resume and you haven't done anything else during that time period. Or talk about it on your LinkedIn profile. Because a LinkedIn profile is really where people like to know about this kind of stuff. That's really more where they're looking to connect with you on a personal level. The resume should be just the facts, just things that I directly need to know to determine that you are worth the salary.
I'm
Um,
almost wondering in this particular case, since it's like, I understand why you put it there because you want to cover up a gap because it's about a year and a half gap from 2012 to 2013. In this particular case, though, I wonder if it even needs to be there because that was 7 years ago.
yeah,
And you can, but people might be curious about the gap, but hey, a lot of people had gaps in their employment around 2012. A lot of people had gaps in their employment around 2008 too.
yeah.
You can probably mitigate that like by filling out this a little more and getting to the point where by the time I even hit 2012, I've already made the decision to call you, right?
Yeah. So to talk about where you should be prioritizing, um, you want to really focus on your top position. So RTW Industries is what you want to get as much information about as possible. It's where you are right now, so I want to know what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, what your major accomplishments are, what you are currently capable of doing, and that you could basically start doing at my company almost immediately. After that, it depends on uh, which positions line up the most with what you're trying to apply for. Typically, you sort of go chronologically. You focus the most on your current position. You use the next position to cover stuff that the current position hasn't, and you do that as you keep going on. But if one of your positions from 6 years ago directly correlates with what you're trying to do right now in your next role, and the two that are in between that don't really accomplish that, they're just sort of stuff that you did. You can absolutely prioritize older positions more than recent ones.
I want to get to Keith's question in chat because it kind of ties into what we're talking about. Keith asked, I started my full-time software development career in the 1980s. How far back would you recommend I go in listing those jobs? I would not want to sacrifice sections other than job history. Um, and the other question I will get to because he goes on a little bit more. So as far as going all the way back to the 1980s, probably not necessary, right? At the very least, you can make or at the very most, you can make what we call a additional work experience section, which is basically this.
Just rapid fire list out.
Just a list.
Just timeline. Just telling me when you did what.
But there are a couple of reasons why you may not want to do that, right? There are a couple of reasons, including age discrimination, that sometimes people like to hide how far back they've gone. It might just be space, right? I can't answer that question 100% because it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. But in general, right, especially for tech and design, right, the last 10 years are basically all we need to see to know that you are good at your job, and then everything else there is just to show me experience, just to show. And again, this comes down to how you want to present yourself. I'm imagining that somebody like Keith, who has started their development in the 80s, they want to really sell themselves as I'm going to use a probably improper term, but like kind of the wise elder of the room. You want to sell yourself on that experience and everything that you can bring. You don't need to get into detail to do that. Yeah. All you got to do is show some dates. So again, this like heavily varies depending on what you want to sell yourself on, how you want to represent yourself.
A common mistake that people make when they do a resume is they treat it like it has to cover absolutely everything. That it has to be sort of this a completely comprehensive coverage of your entire career and everything you did everywhere. And the reality is, while it all has to be hard facts, it only has to be the facts that are useful to your story. If you've done something and it doesn't actually relate to the next job that you are trying to get, leave it off. No, even and some of the cases are going to be tough. You are going to have to go through a kill your darlings phase where you did something that you're proud of and that was really cool. Maybe you managed a team, maybe you really improved something. But if the job you're looking at doesn't require you to be a team manager or doesn't require you to make an improvement like that, you have to look at making those cuts. You have to keep the document focused on bullets that will actually serve a purpose when they are looking to hire you.
I'm going to stop share now because I want to get to some people who ask questions very early on that we've kind of glazed over. So I want to start with Sherry, who's asked about COVID job searching and says that she is curious about LinkedIn. So I'm gonna start with the LinkedIn thing first. I like the description "curious about LinkedIn." Here is the spiel that I give about LinkedIn. It is a very powerful tool that everybody hates and no one likes to use. Yeah. It's the absolute worst. And the reason for that is because the majority of your experience with LinkedIn is probably 65-year-old insurance salesmen who are playing this game where everyone's trying to get the high score of how many connections you can get, right? Yeah. Like LinkedIn fills me with dread, says Saxon. All right. LinkedIn does not have to fill you with dread. You just have to figure out what you actually want to use it for. All right. The most common use of LinkedIn is as a job board, right? Going in and using it basically just like you would Indeed or any other kind of job board. The thing that LinkedIn is most helpful for, actually, let's back up. A lot of people don't really understand how. Okay, yeah, Husna says
useful
that
for that.
LinkedIn is very useful for finding webinars. It's very useful for finding content about your industry that you can share. And this is very, especially if you are trying to build a name for yourself as someone who knows about things. For example, if you are a person who doesn't have a ton of experience in project management, the easiest thing in the world is to share a LinkedIn article or share a link that you saw, just like you're using it like Facebook or whatever. Here is something I saw about my industry. Here is my comment on it. I have posted it. I have reshared it. I have tagged people who I think need to see it so that they can know, so that it reminds them, oh yeah, I exist. And it's the easy, that counts as networking. Congratulations. That's networking. If you're a person who hates networking, that's it. All you had to do was hit retweet, basically, and it counts. And that does a little bit towards building your brand as person who knows about blank. And this can be really helpful if like you're trying to get into a field that you don't have a lot of experience in. But the other problem is it doesn't do you any good if the people that need to see it don't see it. So the other thing that is super helpful for LinkedIn is research. It is helpful to research if you use the LinkedIn to see who's hiring for the thing that you want to be in, right? That's step one. Step two is finding, once you have once you know that information, you can research the companies themselves. What does this company post about? What do they care about? Like, how well does what they are presenting themselves as mesh with what you present yourself as? The other thing you do is, and this is where LinkedIn's pretty much advanced search is, great. I know I want to work in this industry. These three companies look cool. Let me go ahead and type in UX designer at company, and let me see who's already working there. What are they posting about? What kind of background do they have? Well, this person got hired at this company and they don't have a formal degree. Maybe I should go ahead and apply. Then the other nice thing is you can interact with them, build some kind of rapport. Don't be afraid to use that reach out message. Just a real quick, hey, I'm making a transition to blank. I'm curious about this industry. Do you have 10 minutes to talk about your job? Most of the time, like the worst case scenario is this gets ignored. Right now is a very good time to do that because people
Everyone's insanely bored.
We're so bored. We're trying to fill in our gaps. We just want to hear from another human being. And it's a great opportunity to just build relationships that can pay off later. No one really comes to LinkedIn with, hello, please give me job. That does not work. It is a thing that you need to use, that you need to build yourself, put some time into. The other thing I want to point out is how recruiters use LinkedIn. All right. If I am a recruiter, the way that I use LinkedIn is I search for certain skills and I search for a certain area. So I might be searching UX design, Philadelphia, for example. And then I get, just like a Google search, I get a list of results, people whose profiles say UX designer in Philadelphia. And maybe there's some other like skills in there. Your goal is to get to the first page of those results, just like in SEO. And the ways that you can do that are, number one, you can try to keyword pad your LinkedIn profile, your about me section. Some people have tried to game the system that, but the best way to do that is when you go to your LinkedIn profile, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull mine up and I will share. When you go to your LinkedIn profile, when you scroll down, let me go ahead and use my LinkedIn profile as an example here. In the Zoom, just going to share my screen. All right, here's mine, right? And I actually am committing blasphemy for career coaches because I don't have 500 connections. I only have 445 connections because I don't believe that more connections is better connections. Better connections is better connections. I have 445 connections, and I'm going to say 300 of them, I'm not going to say all of them, 300 of them I know will be useful to me in some way, shape, or form. But anyway, the point I was getting at is so you can put some stuff here that you want people to know about, that you can feature. Down here, way down here, these skills or endorsements, right? the more, so an endorsement is literally just somebody your friend saying, Marty is good at this. It's basically just giving a like button. But what these do is they push you up the rankings in those search results. So if somebody is searching organizational development Philadelphia and I have 10 connections have endorsed me for it, I am going to show up higher than somebody who has organizational development listed and 2 people have endorsed them. Put Fill out these skills here. Fill them out as much as you can. LinkedIn lets you list 50, and then be shameless. Go on, ask your friends. Go on Facebook and say, "Hey, everybody, I do this like twice a year. I just ask people, hey, if you haven't gotten my LinkedIn lately, can you just go here and just click thumbs up on everything and just say that I'm good at it?" It takes 2 minutes. And it makes a huge difference in those results. So that's a way that you can use LinkedIn to get people to come to you, to get them to come to you. Then you're dealing with recruiters, and Dan and I have an entire other launch thing to tell you how to talk and work with recruiters. You got to pay for that one. So LinkedIn is an annoying, wonderful tool if you use it right. The other thing is it's kind of a put out the content you wish to see in the world. Like because I have to follow so many recruiters, I hate everything I see here. That's actually no, Sarah Walker Betcher actually has great content. I hate my LinkedIn feed so much. So the real rule is put out the thing that you want to put there. Just toss out what you want it to be. And again, this all comes down to how do you want to present yourself to potential employers, to potential contacts? What do you want that brand to be? Again, what do you want me to think about you when I leave the room? So that's the other one. And then the other question was...
Actually, I have a quick one from early on I wanted to address real fast.
Yeah, do it.
So someone asked about breaking into UX while not having a lot of experience in the field. This is an extremely niche topic. I think it will apply beyond UX, but something I've heard directly from an HR person within the field is, I do not care about your degree or your certification. Your resume is secondhand information. I just care about your portfolio. And if you're trying to break into the field, make a portfolio. If you don't have already have a portfolio, make one. You can do it on Wix for pretty cheap. And anytime that you are having trouble or just really not finding inroads, just add something to your portfolio. Hop on Balsamiq, whip something together. Every dumb idea that passes through your head, every stupid app that you can think of, make something for it and put it on a portfolio. And I think that's applicable across a lot of other fields. Anything where you can have like a GitHub or something. If you're trying to break into it, just do it as much as you can and put it online and send that in. And eventually that is going to add up to give you a leg up in breaking in.
I want to address Jason's question and Kira's question kind of at the same time. So Jason mentioned that he is switching careers and industries entirely. And Kira mentioned that her life feels like a series of jobs, not amounting to what feels like a career, right? So those are two separate but somewhat related common questions. And the way that I would suggest tackling both of them is focusing on what are called transferable skills, right? And when I say transferable skills, I just mean things that are true about you, things that, whether it's something that you are experienced in or just something about your personality traits or things that will be true about you no matter what the job title is. All right. And again, figuring out how you have demonstrated that. So an example of a transferable skill, this can get a little fluffier, right? I'm going to go back to problem solving. Pretty much every job you've ever had, you've probably solved problems at, right? Or maybe something that's true about you is that you are the person who organizes things and plans things at every job you've ever had, right? What are these things that are common? What are the commonalities here that are going to be true and demonstratable anytime I look back throughout your history? By focusing in on these skills that you're going to take with you no matter what your next job is, you can figure out how to sell and present those skills. And it makes it easier to jump industries. If you are in Kira's situation where you've got a whole bunch of jobs and it's not really a career, go back and find the commonalities, find the things that were true of you at all of those jobs. Now you've got a list. Cool. That's step one. Step two is figuring out what physically you liked to do. How did you actually like to spend your time when you did those jobs? And I will have people literally write down everything that they've done and break it out into sections. Here's stuff that I like to do. Here's stuff I didn't. Here's stuff that I was meh about, but I was good at it. When armed with those two bits of information, stuff that I actual physical tasks I like to do at work and skills that are true about me, you can then generally get at least a vision of a career. And you can use that to kind of shift from there. I'm kind of running out of breath. And Kira, this is literally something that I spend hours with people on. But that's the short version of it. Saxon, you mentioned rationing mental energy versus shotgunning hundreds of applications into the open breeze.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing about that. Now, obviously, shooting your resume out is important. And spending this much time on your resume is important. But every part of a job search is about return on investment, right? If you are spending 30 hours a week shooting your resume out there and it does nothing but make you feel bad and it drains all your energy, number one, it comes down to just using your time differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Use your schedule differently. Maybe instead of spending 6 days a week shooting out resumes, you take one of those days and you focus on LinkedIn. You focus on connecting with people, researching and finding people that you want to be your colleagues. Or instead of on this day, instead of sending out job applications as soon as I see them, on Tuesdays, instead of doing that, I'm going to focus on brushing up my skills with Coursera or whatever. Like, you don't need to be applying constantly. When we post that job application, it's gonna be a while before we get to it, unless the position is really, really urgent. So you don't have to be the first one in the queue. That's a lie.
Yeah, machine gunning out your resume doesn't really do a lot. You really want to go quality over quantity whenever possible. Find, rather than just doing that quick apply button on Indeed or LinkedIn, find a job that you actually really want, that research the company, do your due diligence on it, take your time working on the cover letter, make any adjustments you have to make to your resume to represent yourself better for that specific job. Put it out and then do follow-up. Rather than spending an hour putting out 40 resumes that you haven't really looked at the job that much, spend that time really focusing on one specific job.
The point is, just find the activities that you feel give you the most return on investment for your time. And that may not be cruising the LinkedIn boards and just applying to shooting your shotgun resume out. It might be easier for you to just set up 1 or 2 email alerts once a week and then just spend 2 hours once a week doing it. Dan, we are actually being invited to the Zoom chat for our next talk.
Yep, I was just gonna say we're gonna have to cut it there. So
Dan and I are doing something completely different in the 3:30 session. We are premiering a audio drama, a sci-fi audio drama about a pandemic, an unusual pandemic that Dan wrote and I produced and we cast and directed. So that's going to be in the 3:30 slot. Come and join us. JobHunters.Work. If you have other questions about resumes or things, if you'd like to work with us, DM either of us on Discord. Check us out at JobHunters.Work. Or get us
Twitch.
on twitch.tv/JobHuntersWorks with an S. By the way, you can use
whenever we